Hey everybody, welcome back to A Matter of Life and Maiden, the podcast of the Beast. I am Joe Labriola, and this is episode 35 of the podcast. I was kind of perusing through some stuff and just looking at YouTube and seeing some things, and this podcast Matt and I created was created in 2018, June 30th, 2018. So this thing is like 6.5 years old. It's crazy to think it's been that long. It doesn't seem that long, and him and I have been Maiden fans for 20, 21 years. But today, I kind of touched on it on the last episode that I did. I have just recently got back from seeing Iron Maiden on the Future Past Tour 2024 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at the PPG Paints Arena. And it was my 10th time seeing the band. So what I like to do is every time I see the band, since we've been doing this podcast, I wanted to kind of condense things in my tour experience, like condense it into a podcast episode. I did it before, after Matt and I got back from seeing the Legacy of the Beast 2022 show, so I'm going to do it again here. But this one's going to be a lot more far-reaching. I'm going to try to rank the shows, in my opinion, from my least favorite to my most favorite, or kind of rank them how they were chronologically, and then put like a number beside them. So I think for the purpose of actually showing you the dates and when I saw them, I'm gonna do, like, let's say hypothetically somewhere back in time, and then I'll put that first because that was the first concert I saw, and then give a ranking. So I'm gonna dive in with it. 10th time seeing the band, and just an absolutely phenomenal uh, show. Every time, it's always different. It's always different, and that's what I love about it. But I've said this for the longest time. As a Maiden fan, I can sit here and say that I've pretty much, for the most part, 90 to 95%, seen every single song that I've wanted to see live. Give or take a few, but basically, I die a happy man. If the end is tomorrow or today or whatever, I've seen, for the most part, everything I've wanted to see. And that brings me to the first show that I ever saw, and the first tour that I ever saw the band on, and that was Somewhere Back in Time. I saw them on March 14th, 2008, in East Rutherford, New Jersey, at the Izod Arena. And I also saw them on June 12th, 2008, at the Blossom Music Center in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. Now, the March 14th, 2008 date is, to this day, I'm just going to say it, this is my favorite set. This is my favorite concert I've ever seen them on. My favorite concert I've ever been to in my entire life. Every Maiden concert is head and shoulders above everybody else, in my opinion. But the reason for that is because Matt and I kind of talked about this in the podcast when we were talking about Live After Death, and like how our experience with Somewhere Back in Time was similar to that. This was like the height of us being Maiden fans. It was just a really great time, 2008, and I've kind of subtly talked about this in the podcast. 2008 for us was great. I had just started college. My brother had just started college. One of our friends from high school moved back, and we, started hanging out with him again. And I had just got into playing guitar seriously, just got into metal a couple years prior. It was, everything was really cool. We got into Magic the Gathering, that card game. It just, life was at an all-time high. Everything happening was amazing. And, to put the icing on top of everything, Rime of the Ancient Mariner from the 3/14/2008 show is on the Flight 666 DVD, and it's on the Flight 666 album. So every time I'm like, I have my iTunes or my Amazon Music on mix, and it's on Iron Maiden, and the Flight 666 record comes up, and I hear Rime, I'm like, man, I was at that show. I was part of that crowd, immortalized forever. So that's going to be hard to top, like, for me. But here's the full set. Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Revelations, The Trooper, Wasted Years, The Number of the Beast, Can I Play with Madness, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Power Slave, Heaven Can Wait, Run to the Hills, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden, and then the encore was Moonchild, The Clairvoyant, and Hallowed Be Thy Name. Now, this set was played on a 2008 legs only, and they changed the set in 2009 and mixed it up a little bit. I happen to think, just looking at this set, it's a better set list. I feel like the 2008 set list was just a better set list. Everything about this tour was unbelievable. The tour poster, to this day, one of the greatest tour posters of all time. The Live After Death Eddie coming up out of the ground in front of basically the Powerslave album cover, except it's nighttime, and instead of two Anubis statues beside the Eddie Pharaoh in the middle of the pyramid, it's a Somewhere in Time Eddie and a Seventh Son Eddie beside each other. This set list to this day, I mean, it's mind blowing. The stage set was absolutely unbelievable. The stage set was I'm going to post a picture here, and if you look at the top left-hand corner, because I'm doing this chronologically, the stage set up there in the top left-hand corner, it was basically the Live After Death stage set. It was based on Powerslave. It was ancient Egyptian theme. The mummy sarcophaguses, it looked like ancient Egypt. The floor of the stage was the Eye of Horus. Nico's drum set was very decorative with the Eye of Horus bass drum cover and the Egyptian style motif on all of his toms and the golden symbols and everything. It was just a beautiful stage set. Bruce coming out with the mask on, Round the Ancient Mariner with the tattered cape was absolutely phenomenal. The mask for Powerslave. It just a phenomenal, the ship coming down from the lighting rig for Round the Ancient Mariner, all the smoke, all the pyro, all the lighting, just a phenomenal set. And Walk On Eddie was really cool because it was Cyborg Eddie, and then the big mummy Eddie on the motorcycle springs, just like in Live After Death, came out from the background, so we got to see basically Powerslave Eddie and Cyborg Eddie. It was really cool. The set in general was just phenomenal. Now this one, the opening band for this was Lauren Harris. It was Steve's daughter's band, and we didn't care about them. But I will say this, and this is a fun fact, and I've never really mentioned this on the podcast before, I don't think. But Lauren Harris, when she was playing with Steve and Iron Maiden in 2008 and opening up for them on the Summer Back in Time tour, the guitar player in her band was Richie Faulkner. And I don't know how many of my fans out there who are listening, or fans of the podcast out there who are listening, Richie Faulkner then went on a couple years after that to join Judas Priest after KK Downing left or got fired, and he is now the guitar player in Judas Priest, and he's turned out some amazing records with them. Redeemer of Souls, Firepower, and just this year, Invincible Shield. So it's very, very interesting. Like, I got to see Richie Faulkner, but he wasn't playing with Priest. He was playing with Lauren Harris. And Steve Harris has said a million times in regards to Richie, if anybody in the band were ever to go down, if Davey weren't able to play, or Yan, or Adrian, we would get Richie to fill in, So I just think that's really cool, too. But this, for me, to this day, out of every Maiden tour I've ever seen, is number one. Now, ranking the two different dates, number one for me has to be March 14th, 2008, because it is just phenomenal. Phenomenal. This tour, this set, unbelievable. And then the June 12th show, 2008, was also special to me, too, because it was the first time my brother got to see Iron Maiden. And there were some different things in that show that happened that were very cool, too. Bruce, we were like, where we were sitting, it was me, Matt Wagner, the co-creator of this podcast, my brother, Matt Labriola, and that was it. It was us three. And where the platform was that they had off of the stage when they were playing Run to the Hills, Bruce came out literally right beside us where we were sitting, and he screamed right in our faces. Now, we didn't get to see that on March 14th, 2008, so there's some really cool differences, and they played in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, so he said, I'm going to make Ohio fucking burn when they played Number of the Beast. It was unbelievable. My brother was absolutely blown away. We were blown away. It was a different feel because it was an outdoor amphitheater. Boston Music Center is an old wooden, outdoor amphitheater. The acoustics are different. So these two dates for me in particular are the best, and they'll go down as the best of all time for me. Like I said, stage set was amazing. The gimmicks and the props were there. If you watch the Live After Death DVD, the concert DVD that they released they recorded in 1985, and then they released literally right before the Somewhere Back in Time tour. It was identical. I mean, when they line up at the end for Ram and the Ancient Mariner, to this day, when I watch it, a tear just rolls down my eye. It's so sentimental to me to have that and experience it with my brother as well. It was great. And when we went on March 14th, too, we took another one of our friends that we met in junior high school, Matt Frenary. He came with us, and he was at the 314 show as well. So a lot of really cool memories with this. I bought a T-shirt at the venue, and it was the Somewhere in Time album cover on the front, and then on the back it was Cyborg Eddie coming through like a wall, and it had all the tour dates. So it was really cool. I just, to this day, this concert is unbelievable. And after going and seeing these two dates, and I've said this before on the podcast, I was more into A Matter of Life and Death, Power Slave, and those kind of records. Brave New World, Dance of Death, those kind of things. Number of the Beast. I wasn't really into a lot of the proggy side of Maiden until I went and saw this show. And because I saw Somewhere Back in Time, that made me go out and really appreciate Somewhere in Time and really appreciate Seventh Son a hell of a lot more. Not that I didn't enjoy them I love their records. I loved all of it. But I was hyper-focused on those other ones I mentioned. For the longest time, Power Slave and A Matter of Life and Death, even to this day, but for the longest time, I was infatuated with those records. I'm talking about listening to them on repeat for days and weeks and months and, sometimes years on end. Like, seriously, no joke. But after this show, not that I didn't like Somewhere in Time or Seventh Son, but they kind of rose to the level of Power Slave, Number of the Beast, Peace of Mind, and all those other records that I talked about. And they were kind of even. Because when I listened to them, I liked them a little bit less. And then after this show, I was like, after seeing the songs live, I was like, yeah, they're just as good, So those two will always be my favorite. They are coming in at, my favorite set list, my favorite shows. Slight edge to the East Rutherford, New Jersey one, just because of the Ram and the Ancient Mariner being on those recordings, but absolutely phenomenal. The greatest concert I've ever seen. Moving on from that, the Final Frontier North American Tour. I saw this on July 14th, 2010, and July 15th, 2010. The set list for this was The Wicker Man, Ghost of the Navigator, Wrathchild, Eldorado, Dance of Death, The Reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg, These Colors Don't Run, Blood Brothers, Wildest Dreams, No More Lies, Brave New World, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. The encore was The Number of the Beast, Hallowed Be Thy Name, and Running Free. Now, if you're sitting there and you're listening, and I went through all those songs, you can see that there's not a lot of 80s stuff on this. This was a tour that was focusing on newer material, stuff from the reunion, pretty much up to the present. Now, the thing about going to see these guys in July of 2010 was the Final Frontier album didn't come out until August 2010. So they didn't play a bunch of stuff from the album. They made this more like a greatest hits history tour from the reunion up to that point. So basically from the year 2000 up to 2010, as you can see, and I say this all the time, they did like a 4-3-2-1. They played 4 songs from Brave New World, they played 3 songs from Dance of Death, they played 2 songs from Matter, Life, and Death, and they played 1 song from the Final Frontier album, which hadn't been released yet. It was coming out like a month later. So this was different. this was a very unique tour, a very unique set list, and I ranked this one at the bottom. Not because of the songs. I thought the songs were amazing, but I ranked this one at the bottom just because there has to be a bottom, and I say this all the time. Even though they didn't play a bunch of stuff from the Final Frontier record, I think this not seeing a bunch of those songs, because if you watch the In Vivo DVD and that live album, that is basically the next leg of this. So in 2010 they played this set in North America, and then in 2011 they played a set that was more focused on the album. They played 5 or 6 songs from the record. But this set is really, really different. And if I sit here and I'm thinking, I've seen 7 different set lists. So this for me would be probably number 7 on the rankings. So we're somewhere back in time for me was number 1, both of those shows. This one is going to be number 7 for me. And it's not because I love the songs. I mean, I love the reunion stuff just as much as the 80s stuff. But to go into the stage set and design, it was a little bit more simplistic. In a way, it was very cool, though. It was different. They had, like, the backdrop for a lot of the concert was, like, a black starry night sky. It looked like outer space. And it was a derelict space station. They had, like, two rocket towers on the side, as opposed to before where it was, the pyramid and the Anubis statues on the sides, like the Live After Death or the Summer Back in Time set. And Nico's drum set was kind of cool. It was like he had a black hole for his bass drum cover, and his shells were like this greenish blue color with these kind of like planets on them all around his shells and his drums and stuff. And the hardware for his cymbals was gold. It was pretty much standard, but very, very cool. Walk On Eddie was Alien Eddie from the Final Frontier album cover, and he was playing a guitar. It was neat. He was playing like a white Stratocaster. That was cool. And the big Iron Maiden Eddie that came up at the end, instead of the Power Slave Eddie on the strings, was the Final Frontier Eddie head. And his head just kind of came up and looked around, and you could see like the starry night sky behind him. So it was different, and it was very unique. But I will say this. It really took Matt and I by surprise, because we never thought we were ever going to see any of these songs either. And they caught us by surprise. What they were doing was, though, we saw Dance of Death on this tour early on when they started touring, because they started touring a couple months before this, or a month or so before this. They were alternating. They were doing Passchendaele one night and then going to Dance of Death another night. Passchendaele one night and going to Dance of Death another night. We saw Dance of Death, which, don't get me wrong, I love it, but I wish I would have saw Passchendaele. Passchendaele to this day is one song I wish I would see live. That's one of the ones, I know for the most part I said I have everything besides a couple songs. Well, that's one of the ones I wish I would have seen. I love Passchendaele. It's one of my favorite Maiden songs. But I love Dance of Death, too. Now, this was, for my brother, this is his number 1. Now, he's seen Maiden 3 times. He saw them on both of these dates in 2010, and he saw them on the later date for Somewhere Back in Time. And he loved this tour and this set because he's an aerospace engineer, and he loves outer space, so he thought it was absolutely awesome. He loves Alien Eddie. It's his favorite. He loves the Final Frontier record. It's one of his favorites, that and Brave New World. And again, because they played 4 songs from Brave New World, obviously this would be his favorite. So he absolutely loved it. And when we saw these shows, the July 14th, 2010 show, we ended up staying at our friend at that time, Matt Frenary. He had an apartment at Slippery Rock University. He was going to grad school there. So we ended up just driving up there, staying, and then I drove to Burgettstown, PA on 7/14/2010. We went to the First Niagara Pavilion. That's where we saw Maiden the first night. And then we went back to Matt's apartment at Slippery Rock. And then the next day I drove to Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and we saw him at the Blossom Music Center again. Now, the thing that was cool about this set, as opening bands go, Dream Theater opened for them, and it was the original. It was when Mike Portnoy was still in the band. Like right after this is when he left the band and they got Mike Mangini. But we saw Dream Theater, and it was so cool because it was Dream Theater opening for Maiden. At that point in time, Matt and I really, really loved Dream Theater too. We liked them a lot, and it was so cool to see them open for Maiden. It was like we got our money's worth, and yeah, it was phenomenal. It was spectacular. We had really good seats. We kind of sat in a very similar place. It was kind of like on the left-hand side of the arena, on kind of like Davy's side of the stage. About we were in like about halfway back. We weren't on the floor, but we were like halfway back in the seating, and we got a whole view of the entire stage both of those times, and it was really cool. And it was awesome to see, like I said, Dream Theater open up. So for me, this was a really cool experience, and I love every concert I've been to when I've seen Iron Maiden. I love every show they've put on. They've all been different. They've all been unique, but this one for me is my least favorite. Not because I hate it. I love damn near all the songs. I mean, I really do. They've never played a bad song since I've seen them. But for me, that's where this one's at. And I talked about the stage set and how it was, and yeah, so right there we saw Maiden 4 times in total, and 2 run Somewhere Back in Time and 2 run The Final Frontier. Now, the next time we saw them was on June 30th, 2012. And that was in Bristow, Virginia at Jiffy Lube Live. That was the first time we've been to that venue. And I had car trouble on the way down. I had just went and got my oil change at Firestone, and my car was like overheating on the way down because it was like a 90-degree day or 100-degree day that day, driving down to near Washington, D.C., Bristow, Virginia, to see these guys. And my car ended up shutting off like a half an hour before the venue, before we got there. But I got it to start, and we ended up making it. And my parents had to come down and pick us all up, but they were so pissed. But it was me, Matt Wagner, and our friend we used to hang out with, Matt Frenary, and we all went together. And this tour was the Made in England tour, North American tour. So it was like a recreation of Made in England, which was the band did in the 1980s, 1988, 1989, based around the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son record. Now, this tour was really cool too because, again, I'm going to go into opening bands real quick. Alice Cooper opened for Iron Maiden on this tour. And we showed up a little bit late. I think we missed 1 song from Alice, but we got to see the rest. And I will say this, he was an amazing opener. I think to this day, maybe, he's probably the best opener I think that I've seen for the band. They were just, their stage and theatrical performances just meshed really well together. He played all his greatest hits. He played Poison, he played Feed My Frankenstein, School's Out for Summer, I'm 18, you name it, he played it all. It was awesome. And it was just a really nice opening compliment for Iron Maiden at that time. Perfect compliment. Just flawless. So here's the full set. Moonchild, Can I Play with Madness, The Prisoner, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Afraid to Shoot Strangers, The Trooper, The Number of the Beast, Phantom of the Opera, Run to the Hills, Wasted Years, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, The Clairvoyant, Fear the Dark, Iron Maiden, and then the encore was Churchill's Speech and the Aces High, The Evil That Men Do, and then they closed again with Running Free. This set, for me, probably ranks at, I'm going to say this one here is probably 6th place out of the 7 different set lists I've seen. I'm putting this one at number 6. And the reason I say that is, and I've said this before, out of all the 80s records, I'm not really a big fan of Seventh Son. It's my least favorite. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. I'll put it on every once in a while, but it's my least favorite of the 80s stuff with Bruce. But I will say this about this set list. Again, June 30th, 2012 is when we saw this. And this was me, Matt Wagner, Matt Ferneri. And the production on this was absolutely phenomenal. It was just like the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album cover. It was basically like the stage was made of, it looked like it was made of ice. It was like an icy wasteland, just like the cover of the record. And Nico's drum set was awesome. He had like the Spirit Eddie and his bass drum cover, like coming off of Eddie's head from the Seventh Son cover. And then all of his drums were like this really dark blue, the shells. They looked like they were kind of like frozen, kind of like icy. And then in some of the images on the shells, there were like different faces of Eddie. But it was very, very cool. And Bruce and the band, they did a lot of props and gimmicks on this. Probably the most ever outside of Legacy of the Beast, which we'll get to. But they had the walk-on Eddie for this because it was North America. They had George Armstrong Custer Eddie. So like Eddie came out dressed up as like George Armstrong Custer, like a rapier and stuff, waving it around. They had the Seventh Son album cover Eddie come up with, the baby moving around in his stomach or whatever it was, almost like an umbilical cord attached to Eddie and his body, and post-cyborg Eddie just comes up. The full thing was moving. It was unbelievable. They had the Clairvoyant alternate album art, single art or whatever cover it was, come up out of the background with Eddie with a crystal ball, and they had this like giant candles on the stage. One was the devil and one was an angel, just like the poster. It looked exactly the same with the crystal ball and him looking over it. That was absolutely phenomenal. They did so much. They had a bunch of fireworks when they played Seventh Son. The fireworks went off, and I failed to mention that with Rhyme. They did the fireworks for Rhyme too, which made it so spectacular. It was just amazing. It was an immense, absolutely phenomenal production, like stage production. And again, I love every single song that they played. It had been the first time I'd seen a lot of these songs. But for me, I wasn't really a big Seventh Son fan. At the time, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was the best thing ever. I came home and listened to Seventh Son like nonstop, as anybody would, right? Like any Maiden fan. But for me, to this day, going back and looking at it in hindsight and kind of like putting it into the scope of all the concerts that I've seen from Iron Maiden, for me, this one takes sixth place. Sixth place. I love them all, like I said, but for me, this one takes sixth place. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I've said it a lot. After that concert from 2008 to 2012, I had seen Maiden, with Matt and a couple of our friends and my brother there. I had seen them at that point 5 times. 2 times on the Somewhere Back in Time tour, 2 times on the Final Frontier North American tour, and once on the Made in England tour. And I thought, okay, 2 years from now, I'm going to see them again. Because it seems like every 2 years they're coming around. Well, it didn't happen. Because they toured with Made in England in 2012, 2013, and 2014. Then we all know what happened, because we're looking back on it now because it's 2024, but this was 2014. 2014 rolls around, and I'm sitting there thinking, okay, where's the new album? Final Frontier came out in 2010. 2014 rolls around, we didn't get a new album. They're still touring. It's like, where's our album? Then, all that stuff came out in the summer of 2015, June, about Bruce's cancer struggle, and the fact that they were recording the Book of Souls during the holiday time of 2014, around Christmas time. And the stuff with Bruce. So they basically pushed the album back, and they wanted to give Bruce time to have a full recovery. And then the closest they came to us was at Barclays in New York City. And Matt and I just couldn't logistically make it there. And that was in 2016. So it might have only been a 4-year window for us for not seeing them. But it ended up being a 5-year window. So eventually we got to see them in Bristow, Virginia at Jiffy Lube Live, the same place we saw the Made in England show 5 years prior. And that was on June 3rd, 2017. And I'll say this. When they played in 2016, the set list was different than what they played in 2017. And again, for our benefit, I feel like we got the better set list in 2017. They played Tears of a Clown in 2016, and we got The Great Unknown from the Book of Souls record, which I think is a better song. So I think we got the better set list in 2017. So here's the full set: If Eternity Should Fail, Speed of Light, Wrathchild, Children of the Damned. It's the first time I ever saw it. Death or Glory, The Red and the Black, The Trooper, Power Slave, The Great Unknown, The Book of Souls, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. Then the encore was The Number of the Beast, Blood Brothers, and Wasted Years. To this day, I'll say this, that encore was something special. I don't know what it was about it, and like I said, I just got back literally a few days ago from seeing the Future Past Tour 2024 in Pittsburgh. And that encore was pretty awesome too. But for whatever reason, to this day, I just love this encore. I just love how The Number of the Beast kind of flows into Blood Brothers, kind of flows into Wasted Years. This might be, to this day, my favorite encore ever. And maybe I'm biased about it. Maybe, I have to go back and rethink what I'm saying here. But just sitting here looking at it again, the encore was absolutely phenomenal. And this was really the first true new album tour that I had ever seen. But again, going into this, and when I talk about production, wow. This thing for me is absolutely phenomenal. This thing for me is killer. I mean, it was one of the best Iron Maiden concerts I've ever been to. Probably because it had the same kind of feel as Live After Death. It was almost like, people have said this before, I've said it on the podcast, people were comparing the Book of Souls record to Power Slave and how magnificent and powerful it was. And seeing this tour, I can see why. Seeing some of these songs, half the album basically, or more than half the record, live for the first time, there was just something special about it. The stage set was Mayan civilization. The stage set had, when you open up the book for the Book of Souls record and you look inside, and there's the big Eddie head in the background, and it's he's almost like a Mayan god looking over his kingdom in the jungle, and there's two totems, and the band's faces are on the totems. They actually recreated that in real life and put it on the stage set, which was unbelievable. The walk-on Eddie was obviously Mayan Eddie. The Eddie that came up out of the back for Iron Maiden was the Mayan Eddie head. Everything was Mayan Eddie. Bruce had a monkey around his neck and stuff for Death or Glory, that song. It was just a really innovative, gimmicky, prop-heavy, super theatrical performance. It was astounding. A lot of new production on that. Nico's stage set was unbelievable. Up at the top of the lighting ring, or Nico's stage set, Nico's drum set, Nico's drum kit was unbelievable. It was all gold, golden hardware. He had a bloody Mayan calendar on the bass drum cover. All of his shells and stuff were golden with Mayan hieroglyphics around them. And all the hardware and the cymbal sets were this really lustery gold. He had a big cymbal in the back with a Mayan Eddie had on it, Mayan calendar, and I'm getting back to the lighting rig. Up in the lighting rig, they had a spinning Mayan calendar moving around up at the top. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I'm probably going to rank this one out of every tour that I've ever seen, every set list. This for me is number 3. It is absolutely phenomenal, and I can't stress enough how amazing the show was, because it was a new album, and they put so much into this. I mean, the production and everything. To this day, I love Book of Souls. I think going back and looking at my rankings, I put this at the number 7 slot out of their 17 studio albums. It's a really powerful record. I love it a lot. There's a lot of sentimental value, and again, talking about this in 2018, it was right after Matt and I created the podcast, founded the podcast, and recorded our first episode. A couple months after that, I went to Mexico and I went up to an old ancient Mayan ruin, climbed to the top where the sacrificial stone was, and I looked over the jungle, and it reminded me of the album cover. I was wearing a Book of Souls shirt while I was up there on that old Mayan pyramid, looking over the jungle in Mexico, and it was just so surreal. So this means a lot to me because of the life experiences I've had with it. It's that powerful. Not only was it a big gap since the last time I had seen Maiden, seeing the show, but even when they released the album, it was a 5 year gap between the Final Frontier and the Book of Souls. So it was almost like 5 year gap before myself as a fan got a new album, and a 5 year gap before I got to see them perform again. So it was a huge payoff for the wait, and that's why I think for me it's the third best set list I've ever seen, the third best Iron Maiden concert I've ever seen. Moving on from that, after that happened, things were going on track. It was basically back to every 2 years at that point, which was great. And in 2019, Matt and I saw the Legacy of the Beast set in 2019. And this set in 2019 is identical to the 2018 set. They kept it the same. We saw them on July 24th, 2019 in Bristow, Virginia, Jiffy Lube Live again. Same place we saw them on the Book of Souls tour, and same place we saw them on the Made in England tour. And we saw them about a month later, roughly, on August 17th, 2019. And this was at PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And on the August show, our friend Jeremy from high school came with us. It was the first time he saw Iron Maiden. He loved the show so much that he went out and bought a guitar after that. Jeremy Kramer. He loved the show so much he went and bought a Yamaha Pacifica guitar because he was like, that was the best concert I've ever been to in my life. It was amazing. And, I failed to mention this about the Book of Souls too. Let me rewind here real quick. The opening band for that was Ghost. Ghost was a pretty awesome opener, I will say, for that. Now, to this day, I listen to Ghost a lot. I like a lot of their stuff. They're awesome. Now they're super big and they're super popular. They're headlining stuff now. They're not opening for anybody anymore. So, but in 2017, when we saw Maiden on Book of Souls, they were an opener for Iron Maiden, and they were awesome. They were awesome. They were probably the second best opener, maybe the third best opener. It was Alice Cooper's the best, then either Ghost or Dream Theater. Interchangeable that way. But anyway, I digress. I was going back to the Book of Souls again. It was so amazing I can't even remember. I can't even remember half the stuff I wanted to say about it. But moving back to Legacy of the Beast, this set list, the 2018 and 2019 set list, damn, outside of Somewhere Back in Time, this has to be my second favorite set list. So this is number 2 for me. The 2019 set list. This is number 2 for me. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal in every sense of the word. This for me was an amazing, if you want to call it the greatest hits, quote unquote, of Iron Maiden for their entire catalog. It's the Legacy of the Beast set list, the original 2018 and 2019 set. So this is a set: Aces High, Where Eagles Dare, 2 Minutes to Midnight, The Clansman, The Trooper, Revelations, For the Greater Good of God, The Wicker Man, Sign of the Cross, Flight of Icarus, Fear of the Dark, The Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden. The encore was The Evil That Men Do, Hallowed Be Thy Name, and Run to the Hills. That was a badass encore too. Actually, all the encores for the most part. The Somewhere Back in Time encore, the Book of Souls encore, and this encore, I mean, they're damn good. But the thing that's beautiful about this set, and the thing that I love the most about it is, without kind of saying it, they kind of went back and they hit on their 80s catalog, and they really hit home with this because they kind of focused on Peace of Mind with it a little bit. You had 4 songs in this set from Peace of Mind. It was a very Peace of Mind heavy set. I'm going back and thinking about it. Somewhere Back in Time was very Power Slave heavy, but they also sprinkled in a lot of Seven Son and Somewhere in Time in that. Made in England was, all Seven Son, like super Seven Son heavy. It was based on that record, so they played 5 songs from that. Number of the Beast, I say this all the time, every tour usually, or every show they play, up until, recently with Future Past, but They're going to play 2 or 3 songs from Number of the Beast almost exclusively on every single tour. This was nice because they focused on Peace of Mind, and without giving us a world peace tour, they played probably some of the greatest songs from the Peace of Mind record, but then they also sprinkled in stuff that made me feel like I was watching Rock in Rio. They sprinkled in Wicker Man, they sprinkled in Sign of the Cross, they sprinkled in The Evil That Men Do, they sprinkled in The Klansman. You know, that made it feel like Rock in Rio mixed with World Peace Tour. It was almost like a hodgepodge. It was almost like, again, a double album of appreciation. It was like, hey, we're going to throw in some stuff from Rock in Rio. We're going to throw in some stuff from Peace of Mind. And it worked majestically. The stage set for this, too, was absolutely kick-ass. It was like a cathedral with a bunch of stained glass windows. Nico's drum set on this was, again, another home run. Beautiful drum set. The bass drum kit was like a stained glass window. And all the shells for his drums were like stained glass eddies in different incarnations. And they had like this red and blue and green and yellowish motif, like they were stained glass in his drum shells. And all of his hardware was black. It was like painted to look real, like black. It was like black cymbals and black hardware. And it just looked amazing with the stage set. It looked absolutely unbelievable with the stage set. Like, I don't know what to say about it other than that. It was one of his most beautiful drum kits ever. And what they did with this in terms of props and gimmicks and everything, just how they transitioned. Bruce fighting. Trooper Eddie came out and Bruce fought him on the Klansman. It was great. He was a walk-on Eddie. They had the Big Eddie in the background was like the Legacy of the Beast tour poster Eddie with like the devil horns curled up, kind of like devil-looking Eddie. It was an amazing show, an amazing spectacle. Bruce sets off the TNT at the end. They have the Spitfire come out for Aces High. You know, Bruce in the costume for the Trooper. He dresses up with the same kind of like tattered robes he used for I'm the Ancient Mariner for Revelations. It was unbelievable. Sign of the Cross. He kind of comes out with the same hood that he wore on Dance of Death when they played that, and he had the glowing cross that lit up and everything. Fear of the Dark, he comes out with a mask and a hat and the lantern with the green light in it. It was unbelievable. Like, this set, Flight of Icarus, he comes out with the flamethrowers, like on his wrists, shooting flames out. This set was absolutely phenomenal. Where Eagles Dairy comes out with like a hat on, like he's a fighter pilot, like he's Clint Eastwood. I mean, in terms of production, Hallowed Be Thy Name, he comes out with a rope, like he's going to hang himself, and he's in the gallows. This set was like super over the top with production and stage production. It was probably the most production I'd ever seen on a Maiden set list, the 2019 set. It was glorious. And this is a very close number 2. The reason Somewhere Back in Time gets all that love for me is, like I said, for all the reasons I described it. It was the first tour I'd ever seen. 2008 was just an awesome time for me. I was getting into metal music a couple years prior, getting into becoming a serious guitar player. First time you see Maiden, Rime the Ancient Mariner, all that stuff. I mean, it's hard to beat that. It's hard to beat that. But this Legacy of the Beast 2019 shows that I saw, they're right behind Somewhere Back in Time as the second best set list I'd ever seen from Iron Maiden. This thing was glorious. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was absolutely glorious. What a set list, too. Like I said, this is like the greatest hits of Iron Maiden, Legacy of the Beast. Perfect set list. It was incredible. Now, after this set, and after everything with this happened, and I talked about all the eddies and all the costume changes Bruce went through and all these different things, COVID happened after this. So 2020 happened and it was COVID. And I remember Matt and I saying to ourselves, well, if 2020's happening, maybe we'll get a new album in 2020. It's been 5 years, Book of Souls. But no, we didn't get it. You know, then obviously Senjutsu came out in 2021. So they had to cancel all their tour dates for 2020 and 2021. So then the gentlemen that they are, they could have ended in 2020 and said, yeah, we're done. They were like, no, there's a bunch of places that we didn't get a chance to play, and we want to play. We want to give those fans in those places who didn't get a chance to see it a chance to see the legacy of the beast. And we're going to do it. And that's exactly what they did. They didn't rest on their laurels. They went out and they were like, we're going to give our fans a Legacy of the Beast set. And then when COVID restrictions and stuff were lifted and they were able to go out and tour again and do those things that they were going to go tour with, they came back with a Legacy of the Beast 2022 set. And I was fortunate to see them again on October 23rd, 2022. And this was at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., in the States. And I took my dad to the show. This is the first time he'd ever seen Iron Maiden, and he loved it. He was like, wow, that was absolutely phenomenal. They are amazing. And he didn't know a lot of the songs. He knew like Trooper, Run of the Hills, but he was in awe the entire time. He stood up and watched every single second of it. When we got back, he was looking at guitars. Like, they get you into music. And, he loved it. But the thing with this was they changed the setup a little, the set list up a little bit. And they added the Senjutsu songs in because they had just released that album. And they're like, well, we want to play some stuff from it. So we're going to modify the 2018 and 2019 set and make it different. So this was the 2022 Legacy of the Beast set. Senjutsu, Stratego, The Writing on the Wall, Revelations, Blood Brothers, Sign of the Cross, Flight of Icarus, Fear of the Dark, Hallowed Be Thy Name, The Number of the Beast, Iron Maiden. And they did 2 encores on this. The first encore was The Trooper, The Clansman, and Run of the Hills. Then they go back in. Then they come back out and they close with Churchill's speech in the Aces High with the replica Spitfire. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. It was an amazing set, but pretty much everything from this set, besides the different song choices and the Senjutsu stuff coming in, like I said, and at the beginning, they added another realm. They added a Senjutsu realm that was like a temple. It was like a Japanese temple. And the first 3 songs they played were from Senjutsu. So Senjutsu Eddie came out, like the Samurai Eddie, at the beginning. And then the rest was pretty much identical, for the most part, to the previous Legacy of the Beast sets. They had Troop Eddie come out with a sword and fight Bruce. They had him Bruce shoot him when he dressed up as a trooper. They had the same horned Devil Eddie come up for Iron Maiden. Spitfire came out, like I said. Everything else was pretty much the same besides the Senjutsu editions. Now, I'm going to say this. It was awesome how they did it. I thought it worked out really well. But, for me, I preferred the 2019 set list that I saw more so than this. Not that it wasn't good, but I just felt like the 2019 set was more complete. It was a more refined, like, it gave you everything you wanted. This one kind of switched up a little bit, and I understand why they did it, because I know they wanted to include Senjutsu stuff in this. But the 2019 set was just way better, I think. So for me, this is in the 5th position. Out of all the Iron Maiden concerts I've seen, this is in the 5th position. Number 5 is the Legacy of the Beast show I saw in 2022. So, yeah. Moving on from that to the most recent show that I've seen. I loved it. Don't get me wrong, it's amazing. But I'll just say it now. For me, this was the 4th best Iron Maiden concert I've ever seen, and I put it at number 4, and I'm going to explain why. But the cool thing was they had Blade Runner end titles for the beginning, and then here's the set. Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger in a Strange Land, The Writing on the Wall, Days of Future Past, Time Machine, The Prisoner, Death of the Celts, Can I Play with Madness, Heaven Can Wait, Alexander the Great, Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden. The encore was Hell on Earth, The Trooper, and Wasted Years. Wow. I will say this. The reason it's at number 4 is it's hard to touch Somewhere Back in Time, obviously. It's hard to touch that amazing Greatest Hits Legacy of the Beast set. Why is it not at number 3? Well, I'll tell you what. Here's why it's not at number 3. Wow, the songs on this were absolutely phenomenal. Stuff that I never thought that I would ever see in my life. And with that being Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger in a Strange Land, and Alexander the Great, I never thought in a million years I would ever see those songs. And I love the inclusion of the Senjutsu songs too. I love Death of the Celts. It was an amazing song live. It was awesome to see The Prisoner again. I hadn't seen it since 2012, 12 years ago, 12 years prior. It was amazing to see Hell on Earth and another closer with Wasted Years. It was amazing. But the stage set and design. The stage set for this one was basically the Somewhere in Time album cover, and it was almost like a cyberpunk city, like neo-noir city. It was like a stage set. It looked like kind of like pictured like a skyscraper with like these neon lights bordering the ridges and the edges of them, and neon lights everywhere. It was very cyberpunky, very dystopian future, very Blade Runner looking. And don't get me wrong, it was awesome, but and they tried to, you could tell that they tried to make it as awesome as they could. So like they had 3 walk-on Eddies this time. They had Stranger in a Strange Land single cover Eddie come out for that. They had Cyborg Eddie come out. They had Samurai Senjutsu Eddie come out, and the blow up Eddie for Iron Maiden was the Stratego album cover, like the red album cover, like a red head of Eddie, Samurai Eddie, and it was awesome. But here's the thing: outside of that, in terms of like production, Bruce wore like some goggles. He wore this really cool like space time traveler jacket that was neat. He did do some very interesting things on the tour. You know, in some of the tours, he wore his jacket that he wore in 1986 with the heart in it that was beating with all the lights and stuff on it, which was really neat. So for that, that was awesome. But again, looking back on hindsight, I had just come from seeing 2 years prior the Legacy of the Beast set lists, and before that in 2019 the Legacy of the Beast set. Like the Legacy of the Beast set, like just set the tone for like what they should do all the time with production values and stage set design and theatrics. This was, you know, on a smaller scale. It didn't quite hit that gear. Now, with that said, though, Alexander the Great, I mean, damn, that was where Ram of the Ancient Mariner was the crown jewel of the Somewhere Back in Time set list, and you know the Final Frontier tour set list. Pretty much seeing all the stuff from all those records was awesome. Like they were the crown jewels. Like the newer stuff was the crown jewels. They were all equal in that set. I couldn't really give an edge to one song for the other. Seeing Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Made in England in 2012, the crown jewel of that was the title track. It was absolutely phenomenal. But also Phantom of the Opera, that was amazing too. Seeing that after Made in England, the Book of Souls, I mean, the Red and the Black was absolutely amazing live. The title track was amazing live. That whole show, just theatrically, was unbelievable. And then fast forward to Legacy of the Beast, you know, Sign of the Cross was the crown jewel of all of those shows, with the fireworks and the production on it, with Bruce with the glowing cross and everything. That was the centerpiece. But it was also awesome to see, like I said, the Klansman, Flight of Icarus, Where Eagles Dare, and it's stuff that I never thought I'd ever see, ever. And we got to see them. Alexander the Great on this and Hell on Earth were 2 huge highlights, those 2, and Caught Somewhere in Time and Stranger in a Strange Land for me. Those were like the 4 songs out of this, and Death of the Celts. 5 songs. Caught Somewhere in Time, Stranger in a Strange Land, Death of the Celts, Alexander the Great, and Hell on Earth. Those 5, wow, were they powerful. I mean, they were absolutely astounding to see live. And that's why it kind of, even though the stage set and design wasn't absolutely phenomenal, and it wasn't to the, you know, the level I think of a lot of the other stuff that I'd seen, it was better than, in my opinion, it was better. The reason this is above the 2022 set for Legacy of the Beast is because I think the set list was better. I think the set was better. I think the songs, like I'm just mentioning here, were just phenomenal. I saw this November 8th, 2024, just a few days ago, at PPG Pants Arena in Pittsburgh, and I brought my girlfriend, Devin McNeilis, with me. It's the first time she had ever seen Iron Maiden. She loved it. She's a big Dio fan. She was like, "That's awesome. I can see now what you're talking about with Bruce's stage presence and how they sound like Dio, and they have that feel, and they don't sing about like, girlfriends and relationships. They sing about stuff that's deep and life and all that. And I'm like, yes, that's what they sing about. And she was like, that's amazing. So she really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, the walk-on Eddies were cool. It was cool that there was 3 of them, but looking back, this has to sit at number 4 for me, even though I just saw it. I came back and yesterday I listened to Somewhere in Time. I listened to Senjutsu again. It's just everything that they do is awesome. But again, I don't think I'm ever gonna get back to that Somewhere Back in Time number 1. But I'll say this: maybe I'm wrong. Looking at the Run for Your Lives tour coming up, they're playing songs from their first 9 albums. It could be a damn good show, and if they had the production like they did to Legacy of the Beast, this could be one of the best Iron Maiden concerts coming up in 2025 and 2026 that we're going to see. And I can't freaking wait. I am pumped. I think it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. We'll see where that sits, because I'm definitely going to that too. Probably not till 2026, but I'm definitely going. But that's it for ranking them. That's all of them. That's all of them. So coming in at, let's just do a recap. Coming in last place at number 7 on the list for me is the Final Frontier North American Tour. And again, not because I hated it or anything, it was just stage set and all those things like I'd mentioned. Coming in at number 6 for me was Made in England North American Tour, based on the Seventh Son album. Again, just I wasn't really a big fan of Seventh Son. In general, I listen to the record once in a while and I put it on and I like it a lot, but I like all the other 80s albums better. Coming in at number 5 for me is the Legacy of the Beast 2022 show that I saw. Again, reason being because it was just the 2019 set was better. It was just the 2019 set was better, I thought. Coming in at number 4 for me, Future Past Tour 2024 that I saw. Amazing set. Amazing list of songs. Stuff I never thought I'd ever see. I mentioned the songs already. But again, kind of like not quite as extravagant stage production-wise, prop-wise, gimmick-wise as the other shows that are ranked higher. And that's really it. There is no other reason. I loved all the songs. I thought the performances were absolutely amazing. The solos for all these concerts were unbelievable. As a guitar player, I look for that. I love Adrian, Dave, and Yan. They're my favorite guitar players of all time. But again, basically just the production on the stage set. But it's still sitting at number 4. Number 3, Book of Souls. Book of Souls tour that I saw in 2017. Amazing. Just seeing the songs from the record live was absolutely phenomenal. The stage set and the production. The change up to the encore was really cool and different and unique, and I love seeing Blood Brothers and Wasted Years back to back. That was absolutely phenomenal. Amazing. Number 2, Legacy of the Beast 2019. Amazing set list. The greatest hit set list. The best of the old stuff, the best of the new stuff thrown together. Just absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal set. Killer. Very, very close to being probably one of the best concerts I've ever seen. But number 1 takes the cake, always will. At least for now. We'll see what Run for Your Lives has, but Somewhere Back in Time, that tour, with a Power Slave heavy focus, a little bit of Seventh Son and Somewhere in Time sprinkled in, a little bit of Peace of Mind sprinkled in, Number of the Beast too. Just the most amazing set list to this day. Number one there for me. And that's that. And I was going to do kind of like a recap, and I have a list of all the songs that I've seen live, but I don't think I'm going to do it this time around. I think I'm going to save that for another episode because it's going to take so long to go through that and digest it. And I wanted to do this first. I wanted to talk about this first. And I forgot to mention this too. Now I'm sitting here thinking about it. For the Legacy of the Beast 2019, the opening band was the Raven Age. George Harris, Steve's son, played for them. They were okay. Again, I didn't really care less about them. See, that's how important they are to me. I forgot to even mention them. Then, on the 2022 set, Within Temptation opened up for them, for the Legacy of the Beast. And they were good. They were pretty good. I liked them. Again, not really my style, though. So, And then this time around, Future Past, when we got there, The Who, not the British band The Who, like it's not Pete Townsend and Roger Daughtry, but The Who, like HU, that's how you spell it. They opened up for Iron Maiden, and when we got there, we missed their entire set besides the last song. And honestly, I didn't really care for the last song, so again, but focusing on all the sets and Iron Maiden and everything, that's my ranking. So yeah, I hope you guys get a chance to see them if you haven't seen them on Future Past yet. Maybe you're going to see them down the line here. I think it's coming to a close here pretty soon. This tour. If not, and you're my friends over in Europe, I know pre-orders for the Run for Your Lives tour have already gone on sale for 2025, so I'm sure you probably snagged those up already. And I really, really hope that we get pre-orders here soon for the 2026 shows over here in the States, because I will be getting tickets if they come again to PPG, or they come to Bristow, or they come anywhere close, or any of the venues I've been before. So I'm very, very excited. But yeah, that's been kind of like my rankings now after seeing them 10 times. I didn't really rank them before when I talked about tours before, but I'm just so fortunate to be a Maiden fan and to have seen this many songs from their catalog. It's so refreshing. Like it's so hard to explain. They are. I say this all the time. I said it in my most recent podcast episode before this. They are a religion. They are a philosophy. They are a way of life to me. They're more than just a band. They've been with me for a long time. I mean, you hear me talking about it in these podcast episodes. You heard Matt and I talking about it when we were recording episodes together. They are just something that have been with me since I was an 18-year-old guy. Like an 18-year-old, I wasn't even really grown up yet. I had just graduated high school, like a few months prior to that, and I didn't even know who I was. These guys helped me discover who I was. They led me in the direction of metal music, and it's become my favorite genre of music. They blend everything that I like into their stuff. They sing about things that I'm passionate about. They sing about history. They sing about science fiction. They sing about philosophy. They sing about fantasy and those kind of things. And that's what makes them the greatest band in the world and the greatest thing in the world. They are unbelievable. I've got so many people into them over the years, friends, family now, significant others. It's awesome that they're able to do that, and that they continue to do that, and they're still going out there. They're still churning. I mean, all the guys in the band have side projects too. Look at Bruce with his solo stuff that came out, earlier this year. Like he's still passionate and going out and killing it. Steve has British Lion. Adrian's playing with he has a Smith Kotzen band with Richie Kotzen. Nico has the Titanium Tart Iron Maiden cover band that he plays clubs and stuff down in Florida because that's where he lives. Davey and Yan don't seem to be doing too many side projects, but the rest of the band, I mean, they're just driven. And now they're touring again. Literally, people think like, oh, they're done after Future Past. They're going to take a break. No, they're not taking a break. They're coming back next year. Like, think about that. They've been touring now 2022, 2023, 2024. They're touring 2025 and 2026. That's nuts. That's 5 years straight, basically, of touring. Now, they have like 5 or 6 month breaks in between, but that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm just so privileged. And next episode, when I go over all the songs that I've seen and how many times I've seen them, I'm going to talk about, why I'm privileged. Every time they've played a tour after I've seen them, I've always heard new songs. It was never the same song. There's always different stuff. They've always changed it up. Like, they don't go around just playing greatest hits all the time. They change it up. They make it fun for everybody, so everybody gets a little bit of something, and they do it for themselves because they don't want to play the same stuff over and over again. They want to put their new material in. They want to put their reunion stuff in. They want to put something. They'll go back and forth. Sometimes they want to play newer stuff. Sometimes they want to play older stuff. Sometimes they want to do both at the same time. Sometimes they want to mix it up. Sometimes they say, you know what, we're not putting Number of the Beast songs in this tour. We're focusing on Somewhere in Time and Senjutsu for the most part, and that's it. And that's what they did, and that's awesome. And that's why I love them. They stick to their guns. They stay true to themselves. They always have, and that's why they're the greatest band in the world. So if you get a chance, like I said, to go out there and see them on any tour, please make sure you go do it. Please continue to support them and support us at A Matter of Life and Maiden. Hit that like button. Subscribe to us. Leave some comments. Talk about things. How many times have you seen them on tour? What was your favorite tour? What was your favorite set list? What's your favorite record? Who's your favorite guitar player in the band? talk about it. You know, some people were more like '80s fans. Some people like the reunion more. Like Matt and I have always been like a mixture of both. We love most of it. We love all of it for the most part. You know, give or take a few songs here or there, but for the most part, we love both the reunion stuff and the '80s stuff. We're huge fans. So stay true to yourself too. Up the irons. Remember, Maiden is life. The rest is history. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.